This is hopefully going to be a quick tutorial on creating an Ubuntu Linux Live USB flash drive. First, I'll be showing you the procedure on Windows 10, then on macOS 10.13 High Sierra. Now, you might be asking yourself, what does Linux have to do with creating an Xbox One hard drive, and why would you use Linux over the Windows Partitioning Script? Well, for one, the Windows script is based on the original Linux script that you'll be seeing in the next two videos, 3 if you include this one. 2, not everyone has a Windows laptop or desktop handy. 3, we'll actually be using a late 2014 Mac Mini with Ubuntu to repair and upgrade an Xbox One hard drive over the next two videos. Again, 3 if you're including this one. 4, the Linux script actually has better language support, so if you're having trouble with the Windows script in this area, this may be a better choice. Lastly, it's worth mentioning that although we will be using Mac hardware, there is no macOS native script for the simple reason that macOS does not have out-of-the-box support for formatting NTFS volumes. There are obviously utilities for macOS that will do this, but none are particularly straightforward. If someone is willing to prove me wrong on this, I'd be more than happy to create a macOS native script utilizing the yet undiscovered straightforward solution. So let's get started creating the Ubuntu Linux Live USB flash drive on Windows 10. Now, the utility that we'll be using today, both on Windows 10 and macOS High Sierra, is UNetbootin. I've selected this utility because, first of all, it's cross-platform and it works pretty much the same on Windows as it does on macOS, but also because it has a pretty straightforward interface. I had considered a couple other utilities for this video, such as Etcher, which comes recommended by Ubuntu themselves. However, this utility doesn't allow you to add additional files after you create the initial live USB flash drive. In videos prior to this one, I had used the Linux Live USB Creator, and I still recommend this tool. However, it's a Windows-only tool and doesn't work on Mac OS. So let's get started by downloading the UNetbootin. And you can see it's pretty straightforward depending on which OS you're on, but in this case it's Windows, so we would just want to download this and say save the file, and I'll put this onto my desktop and it's fine to replace it. Okay, now that we have our utility for creating the Linux Live USB, we need to actually download a copy of Linux. So all the links you see here will be in the description of this video, and I recommend using the Ubuntu desktop as your live USB installer. You can use other tools as well. However, this is the only one that I've tested. Now, the download is actually pretty straightforward. Just click the download button and give your browser a couple seconds to catch up. Say save file and click save. Now, so if you want to replace it, in this case I'm going to say no, just because again, I want to speed up this video. The actual ISO is pretty large. If we check out our size here, the actual ISO image is almost 2 gigabytes in size. The last thing we're going to want to do is download the Xbox One HDD-master-7.zip, and this is pretty straightforward as well. Just click download, say save file. Again, we'll put this to our desktop, and this will download because it's under a megabyte in size. So at this point we have all the files we need to create our Ubuntu Linux Live USB flash drive, and the additional Xbox formatting tools, which we'll add on after we've actually created the flash drive. Okay, so we'll minimize our browser here, and right here we have all the files that we just downloaded. The first thing that we're going to open here is the UNetbootin application. We'll just double click that and say yes to, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device. Now you see here at the top we have the option to actually go and directly download the ISO that we just downloaded a few minutes ago. We could select Ubuntu here and it would select the latest live, but also let us select some of the past versions as well. But since we already directly downloaded our ISO, we won't need to do that. So we'll select disk image here, and we're going to browse to our Ubuntu installer. So make sure we are on our desktop or wherever you downloaded your ISO to, and type in UBU. And it's worth mentioning that at the time I'm making this video, that 18.04 is the latest version of Ubuntu. And again, I'm using the AMD 64 version, as you probably should as well. And we're going to say open. Now, space used to preserve files across reboots, Ubuntu only. It's safe enough to leave this empty, since we're only going to use this live USB flash drive for running the script and formatting a separate drive. We don't need to worry about keeping any file history during reboots. Okay, now it's actually already selected our USB drive and our D drive here. If we open up our Explorer, we can see that our D drive is our Ubuntu drive. I've already formatted this in the past, but that's okay. You don't have to worry about what's on there. It'll actually clean it up for us. So we're going to say OK. And it's going to say that some stuff already exists, so we're going to say yes to all. Now this can take a little while to process. As you'll see in a few moments here, it does get hung up. I've actually run this through a couple times before I made this video, and it does get stuck for a few minutes at a certain point, but just let the script finish out, or just let the window finish out. Yeah, right about there at 261. Okay, so the process is complete. It's worth noting that whole process took about 6 minutes. I sped it up quite a bit here just to save you guys the time, but yeah, about 6 or 7 minutes to actually finish creating the USB flash drive. Okay, so we just need to do the last step. So exit out of that. And the last step is to just put our Xbox One partitioning scripts onto the same flash drive that we just installed Ubuntu to. So I usually use 7-zip, so I'll do the same here as well. So here's our folder, and we want to extract it to the same drive where Ubuntu is installed. So in this case, it's the D drive. So we'll say OK. And it's going to, in my case, like I said, I had already created this same drive earlier today. So it's asking me if I want to replace the files. I'll just say yes to all. So we ensure that we have the latest version of our script on our flash drive. And if everything went okay, this is what our flash drive will look like. These are our scripts, and the rest of this stuff probably won't make a lot of sense, but it's essentially everything that's required for Ubuntu Linux Live USB flash drive to boot properly. Okay, so I'm going to show you the same process again one more time, but this time on the Mac side of things. Oh, and last but not least, we want to make sure we properly eject our drive when we're done. Okay, so at this point we could put our drive into whatever laptop, desktop, or computer we're going to be formatting our Xbox One drive on. Now, as promised, here is our macOS system. Just to give you an idea of the hardware and the version we're running. This is a Mac Mini, late 2014, and it's running macOS High Sierra version 10.13.5. So at the time I'm making this video, this is the latest version of macOS, and you'll see that it works perfectly fine for creating Ubuntu Linux Live USB flash drives. Now the first thing we're going to do is download a copy of UNetbootin for macOS. And that's as simple as double-clicking this download link here and selecting Save File. The next thing we need to download, again, is a copy of Ubuntu Desktop. Again, the links will be in the description of this video. So we want to click the download button here, wait a few seconds, and select Save. Lastly, we'll need a copy of our Xbox One HDD-master-7.zip. And these are the Linux files which we're going to add to the Ubuntu Linux Live USB flash drive when we're done creating it. So we're going to click the download file link here. And again, say Save File. Okay, so we'll shrink our browser down. Now I've moved all the files we downloaded to our desktop just so that they'll be easier to show. And the first thing we're going to want to do is open our UNetbootin DMG file. So we're just going to double click it and it's going to open up a folder. Now we don't actually have to install UNetbootin anywhere. We can directly run it from here. So we'll just double click the tool and enter our system password and shrink down this window. Now, as you can see, this interface actually looks a lot like the Windows interface. In fact, it's almost exactly like the Windows interface. We have the ability here to directly download Ubuntu, or we can select the disk image that we downloaded. So in this case, we're going to select this option here, leave it set to ISO, and browse to our ISO image. We want to click on Desktop and the Ubuntu ISO and say Open. Now at this point it's already selected our drive. In fact, there's only one drive to select from, so make sure you actually have your USB flash drive inserted. And I didn't mention this before, but your flash drive should be formatted as FAT32. Now for those not as familiar with macOS, there is the disk utility here. I have a shortcut here, but normally you could get to it by going through Finder, Applications, Utilities, and then Disk Utility. And we can see here, here's our external Ubuntu flash drive, and we can see that it's formatted as FAT32. If it wasn't formatted, we could actually click the erase button here, and we could change the format. But since our drive is already formatted as FAT32, I'll just click Cancel here. But one other thing to note here is the device number here. So the device is listed as disk 2 S1. And if we look at our UNetbootin, here's our drive disk 2 S1. So we can see that the proper USB flash drive is selected here. So we can close our disk utility. And we can say OK to starting to create our Ubuntu Linux Live USB flash drive. So we'll just say, click OK there. And just like the Windows script we ran earlier, since this drive was already formatted as our Linux Live USB flash drive, we're going to have to overwrite the existing file. So we're just going to say yes to all here. And we'll let this process finish out. Okay, and the process does slow down a bit when it gets to 261, just like it did on the Windows side of things. But here it's a bit clearer as to why it's slowing down. This is almost a 2 GB file that it's copying over to our flash drive, so it makes sense that our entire ISO image is about 2 gigs in size. So this is the majority of the copying that needs to get done. Okay, so that should do it. We've now should have a working Ubuntu Linux Live USB flash drive. So you can basically close out the application here. So the last thing we need to do is get our Xbox One partitioning scripts onto our flash drive. So this is a little bit easier on macOS here. We can just double click a zip file and it will pull out our directory here. And we want to copy this directory to the base of our flash drive. So you can see if we go through Finder, here's our Ubuntu drive. and we already have our scripts here, which from when we did the Windows process, but we're still going to copy them over here either way. And it's going to ask us if we want to replace the files. We're going to say replace. Just in case you had done this in the past, you wanted to have the latest version of the scripts anyway. And there you go. So at this point, all we have left to do is eject our drive, and we should be ready to put that flash drive into whatever system we're going to be using to build our Xbox One hard drive for either repair or upgrade. Now, the next two videos I have coming out after this one are going to utilize the USB flash drive that we just created. And the first video is going to be on repairing or replacing an Xbox One hard drive. So basically taking an empty drive and building it up from scratch. The video after that will be upgrading your Xbox One hard drive. So going from a smaller drive to a larger drive, or a larger drive to a smaller drive. But it requires that you basically have a source drive to copy from and a target drive to copy to. Okay, well, I hope you guys find this video useful, and I'll see you in my next video.